Let us now look at two examples. First one is Nigeria, where you have a recent demographic and health survey in 2013. Within the report that is publicly available, we can go directly to the chapter related to the child mortality. And on the table where you see the recent 5-year periods, in this case for Nigeria, and the previous 5 years before the survey, you have a child mortality of 128 per 1,000 live births. And then you get similar information for previous 5-year periods of that survey. And we can go to the childmortality.org website and select in the country selection here the data for Nigeria. And what we see here is a collection of multiple sources of data, different studies, that basically shows the most recent survey and gives you this different data that we have just looked at, for example, the 128 value, and how does it compare with the previous years. And what's important to keep in mind is when you compare all these different sources is basically that sometimes some of these surveys are not always representative of the whole country. And for Nigeria, what we see is some of the very early surveys in the country actually didn't include as well some parts of the country. And the child mortality that were obtained for some of these earlier years are very different and are underestimating the overall child mortality for the country. So to take into account all the sources of data are very important. And if you really want to see more carefully some of the specific sources that are on the plot, you can go in this case to the tab related to the data here and see the values for these different periods of different information for Nigeria. Okay, let us now look at a country like Bangladesh, where we have a recent study done in 2015, but in this case based on the sample vital statistics system of Bangladesh. In the report, you have many tables, but if we go to the section related to child mortality, specifically about under 5 mortality, what we see is a mortality rate of 36 per 1,000 live births for Bangladesh, and we want to compare to what extent this new information is valid. And what we do is we go to the child mortality website, as we did with Nigeria, but this time we want to look at, for 2015 value, how does it compare with the data of the past? For that year, on this version of the website, there is no data for 2015. There is only a prediction, a projection. So the most recent data that were in the database stopped in about 2012 or 2013. So here we can go to the estimation page, and we can go to the most recent prediction or projection, and what we see was a predicted value of about 38 per 1,000, and what we have observed in the table that we just looked at was 36 per 1,000. So it's very close to what we have expected as a value, and it's even a bit lower, but still within the confidence interval, the 95% confidence interval. So it's very reasonable to expect this value, and at the same time it suggests that the progress has even been a bit faster than anticipated based on the data of the past. So from these examples, there are 3 takeaways that we would like you to remember from this lesson. First is that you should always try to take into account all the data sources that exist for a particular indicator and country. Second one is to always pay attention that the data you are using are representative of the population you are studying, and if it's at the country level, that they are nationally representative. And the third one is really about having a benchmark that you can compare this data against. And for child mortality, for example, the childmortality.org website gives you easily access to all this existing information from all the countries, and you can compare this new data against existing data.